Welcome to County Fermanagh, or better still, welcome to Belcoo and surrounding areas. Belcoo is a small village nestling on the shores of Lower Lough Macneen in the southwest part of the county. It's sheltered from the south by the Culkey Mountains in Cavan and open in the north to panoramic landscapes of mountains, lakes and rivers. Not so very far from the village starts a countryside of walks and places of interest, beauty spots very often in rough mountainous terrain. The locality has more than its fair share of monolithic stones with deep historical significance. This is a neighbourhood we have all enjoyed for a lifetime, but in recent years has attracted a large volume of tourist traffic. What you see is the Hanging Rock, taken from the lawns at the cottage, which itself is a big landmark in the vicinity. Now this is peace and tranquility, gliding through glass. This is Lower Main Street in Belcoo, leading down to the bridge and across to the neighbouring village of Blacklion in County Cavan. The bridge itself has a multi-purpose role. It's the frontier between Fermanagh and Cavan. It's the main artery to the west of Ireland. It crosses the waterway between Upper and Lower Lough Macneen. But as far as the locals are concerned, it's simply over to the Black. Now this is the farm of Ignatius Maguire in the townland of Latoon, just outside the village. Surely a lifestyle from yesteryear, but in many parts of rural Ireland, this is still the way things are done to this day. This is fathering time on the farm. And the first thing you need is a fathering rope. He's going to cut a truss from this peck of hay. Just watch. It's important to keep the knife dry for the next occasion. And this cut has to be straight, otherwise what's left would fall. And again, sealed up against the rain and the storm the next time. This das, or truss as it's often referred to, is a backload, about 100 of hay, what a man could comfortably carry on his back. Now, feeding time on the farm. This is where I know mine, and mine know me.
Oh, suck, 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 suck. Oh, suck, suck, suck. Come on. Six, come on. Oh, yeah. Six, come on.
The father is thrown on dry ground here all the time for painfully obvious reasons.
Oh, six, six. Come on, six, six.
Now, this is the scraping out of the group. Into the bayou. The cart itself was made just before the turn of the century by a man called Willie Collum from Kiltyclogher. It's probably gone through a few sets of wheels since then. You'd nearly think that Coco knows where to go himself. Well, we all remember Michael O'Hare in Crow Park at a hurling match talking about the clash of the ash. Well, this is the slap of the clap in Latoon. And that's the handbrake. Now back in the Haggart, where it's feeding time for the hens. This feed was a mixture of corn and potatoes, potato skins. This is surely free-range eggs. So I know in fact that the shell of the free-range hens was a harder shell. Not that they would bounce if you let them fall, but it was a harder shell and very often a tastier egg. This lady was disturbed, but she still had her day's work done. Now this is the setting of the spuds with the scoring rope. And the spreading of the manure. Bad land obviously needed more fertilizer and less seed. The seed was planted about 14 inches apart, but as I say, land like this needed a thin distribution of seed. This is Coping Lee with a Fermanagh spade, very often referred to as a McMahon spade. Another agricultural implement at the time for setting spuds was the loy, which had a different technique altogether. The lie was used to flick up the sod with a wrist movement. There's still a very strong lie association in County Leitrim, which is not that very far from here. The technique in using the lie was that you flicked up like a hurley stick with your wrist. You flicked up the sod, and the lie could very easily turn what was called that time the double sod, one to the right and one to the left. This was what is known in any generation as hard work. And of course, a wee drop of lubrication was always essential. Another annual event was a day in the bog. This is what's known as slinging the turf. And that's what's known as a full spade. One to cut, one to fill, and one to wheel. The top floors are always wheeled afar off, so that the fourth and fifth floors could just be spread on the bog bank. That's sore on the back. This is the part of the day that everybody was glad to see. A feed in the bog, with its own distinctive taste and smell. The turf spade itself was always made as a right-handed one or a left-handed one. And the top handle was very often made from the horn of a cow. Thus the top rows wheeled far away. There was always 2 rows on the turf barrow and a binder on top, what's known as a binder, to keep them together. You've often heard the expression, there's no place like the bog for turf. Well, it's also true to say that there's no place like the bog for an appetite. And this meal had its own distinctive smell and taste. What you thought was tea leaves on your tea turned out to be coom and dust from the bog bank. Mugs or pongers was used all the time. A ponger was a metal cup made by the travelling people. A hard-boiled egg was also part of the staple diet in the bog. It was always hard-boiled because nobody had the way or the means to time it. After a windy day in the bog, with the sweat on your brow, the tear in your eye, and the moisture on your lips, everybody came home like Al Jolson. Another daily chore on any farm, on any day, is the milking of the cows, or the cow. This is where Ignatius would maintain you get the most from the cow because she's standing in her natural environment. Just listen to the process. This mightn't be all that pleasant on a rough, stormy November evening, but it's still lovely to see. Grateful thanks to Black Polly. In years gone by, a big part of the farming community depended very heavily on the blacksmith and the forge. Not only did he shoe the horses, he put hoops on the cart wheels, he made metal gates, and he did general repairs around the Haggart. In all the local churches, graves are decorated with his handiwork. This is the forge in Druncully. And years ago, there was a forge in the centre of the village in Belcoo. And the blacksmith that time was Miles Flynn. Now, just watch and listen to the sights and the sounds of the forge. The bellows, the tongs, the hammer, and the anvil. This distinct smell of the burning of the hoof brings back many happy childhood memories. And rumour has it that this was good for you, and was often said that that's the reason that all blacksmiths live to a ripe old age. There was always a wee cheer when the job was done. So this is Star with a new set of shoes on the way home for another term in office. Star is a 5-year-old, half Welsh and half Dale, and a very friendly, placid animal. Another skilled tradesman in any locality was a stonemason for the erection of a dry stone wall. We're now in Meenarani townland. We're watching and listening to the touch and the skills of Gerald McNulty. This is where the old Irish shanachal comes to mind again. The snow than card ganea olam. It's an enemy of the trade not to learn it. If you want to build a wall, serve your time. Otherwise the wall will fall. The packing that was used here was called the spalls. This is an old shop dwelling from yesteryear, where eggs, merchandise and such like changed hands very often as a form of barter. Smuggling was rife in the area at the time, and it was no disadvantage to be just 2 miles from the border. This is the skills and the craft of a stonemason as distinct from a block builder. A block builder doesn't build dry stone walls. It's very often a trade too that's handed down from father to son. This is not the case here, but Gerald's grandfather was a good stonemason. It's a tedious job and one that takes lots of patience. And now to Kelly's Well. This was the main source of water to the village prior to the pipe water supply in the early 1930s. It was also said that local children earned pocket money carrying water to the village and the local barracks and to the barracks square where a drill took place. Very often people think that a well is a well is a well. But to change the level of a well, to change the floor of a well, or to change the supply into a well is not an easy operation and to be left to the experts. And now we come to probably the greatest tourist attraction in the area, the thatched cottage home of Margaret Gallagher herself at the Devil's Ace in Mullalusty, for an evening of entertainment always enjoyed by young and old down through the years and hopefully for many years to come.
Upon a time when houses were thatched with pot sticks and Turkish chew tobacco, there was a rich nobleman and he had one daughter, a lovely girl. Everyone was in love with her. Now, this girl, she had two youths that was in love with her. One of them came very often to see her, and the other fellow came but seldom. Now, the father fancied the fellow that came often, but the girl fancied the fellow that came seldom. And so things went on. One day, the father wanted to see her settle down in life, and he called a great feast. He invited everyone, and when they were all gathered round the place, he said to the girl, "I want you to drink the health of the man you're going to marry." Now, the poor girl was in an awful pucker because she didn't want to annoy her father, and she didn't want to go against her own heart. So she stood up, and this is what she said. "I drink the good health of often who came, but who often came not, I also must name. And who often came not, I always will blame, that he came not as often who came." And when she had said these words, she sat down. Now, the fellow that came often was beside her, and he saw that he wasn't a wanton, and he moved away. The fellow that came but seldom was there, and he thought, now there's a great spunky girl, and she's good enough for anyone, and he moved up beside her. And they were married with their father's permission, and they lived happy ever after, and if they didn't, that we may put on the kettle and make tea.
Here we have a group of children from the Erne Special School in Enniskillen. This is an annual event for these children. The cottage itself is 200 years old. It's a stepped building. It's a lived-in house, not a museum piece, and it's got a rateable valuation of £10. It also has a hanging table which slides along a rail, closes up to the window in the event of a crowd for a party.
To bake the scones, who incidentally is going to be the chef for today?
I think Aidan McDonald, he loves country life.
Who's Aidan McDonald? You're Aidan.
Yeah.
Who's the assistant chef? And a chef all in a restaurant like this always needs an assistant. But I will hang on there, okay? I will then put some butter in there and let that melt. When that is melted, I put in some flour. If you look, boys and girls, you will see the oven lid is resting on the coals. That's that it will be hot. Okay? So, would you like to start baking? And tell me when you're ready, alright? I'll move this out of your way. Maybe teacher would like to supervise what he's doing. Good now, dot it out. Now wait, now don't do it with your fingers because it's going to look more like that.
What's wrong, Polly?
Now, this is a scone cutter. It's a poteen glass, so it's traditional. And this is how you cut them, just like that there. Right?
Right.
That's great.
How do you know when it's hot enough?
I know
You
the
just-
flour
you
starts to
just-
turn.
Hear that, Polly?
Come on, good boy. Perfect, Patrick. Many more of it. Don't want too many more now. Another centre. Another one. Yeah. That's enough, darling. I will leave that one there. Come here. That's a perfect fire for baking. It was too hot the last time. Perfect fire for baking. What do you think of it? Do you think it's enjoyable or is it a nightmare? Enjoyable. Right. Things are needed for today's world, and I identify with that, and I know they're necessary. But I also think this type of living cannot be allowed to be forgotten, because unless, and I always say this to groups I'm talking to, unless we know where we're coming from, we couldn't possibly know where we're going. There you are. You come a bit closer, okay?
It's hot.
It is. It is very hot. No.
They must stand over there.
Down here. You know, if I had a big Merc outside or whatever, the New York car, I don't know the names of cars, and if I had fabulous carpets, you know, and satellite TV, all these cold things and LT and...
As we approach the millennium, these children bid farewell, intrigued by the lifestyle of our ancestors, whose constant struggle was to control and balance nature. This video has been commissioned by Belcoo and District Historical Society to mark the 10th anniversary of its foundation in 1988. The whole project, Haggart and Hearthstone, has been funded entirely by the Northern Ireland Voluntary Trust, a cash injection which the Society greatly appreciated. Finally, to quote Tomás O'Crihan from the Blasket Islands in Kerry, Marnie Vaid Erlehedi Rishon, there'll never be the likes of us in it again.